Hey, this is gonna be just a random video that I wanted to do. It's actually another review, but it's for a review of a movie I actually saw a couple weeks ago. And it's for The Raid 2. Now, I'm a really big fan of the movie The Raid, so I was really looking forward to this one, especially I heard since it's actually like a full-blown sequel to the first movie, not just, the same but different. No, this one actually continues the story in a proper fashion. So I was really looking forward to this film. The only thing that downside about it is that it has a bigger release than the first one did, but still not that wide of a release. I had to drive at least almost an hour away in order to get to see it. But I will say that it was definitely worth it because The Raid 2 is pretty awesome. It's way better than the first one, and I really do like the first movie. The plot is that he has to go now undercover and take out the gangs from the inside and try and catch any corrupt cops that may also be swarming from the inside. And it's really cool. I like the beginning of the movie because it does something that a lot of movies wouldn't do, and it takes a giant step, something that I wasn't expecting to happen, but when it happened I was like, oh, they did that, and it was really, really interesting to see, and it helped the story move along. And then our hero, he gets put in jail. He doesn't commit any crimes. This is just how he gets undercover. And he gets into brawls with people in jail, and then there's this really cool prison riot fight scene that's really violent, and this movie's action is beautiful, but I'm going to get into that a bit later. I'm just going to talk about the story. He winds up in jail for longer than he was expecting to be. He was away from his family a lot longer, which is very hurtful on him because he was expecting there to be a few months tops, but he happened to be there for years. So he lost years of his life trying to get this guy. So when he's out, he immediately goes undercover to find these corrupt cops and corrupt gang leaders. And while he was in prison, he befriended one of the gang leader's sons. So he's immediately let in, which is really cool. And basically this has a Godfather-esque story. The difference is that story similar to The Godfather or Heat or Goodfellas, something like that. It's a gangster story. But the difference here is that as opposed to someone getting just executed, you just see them, get shot and then they're dead. This one is a full-on fight scene, which is really awesome. It makes the movie way more fast-paced than other films like that. So it works. It seems a little awkward at first if you're not used, if you don't watch a lot of gangster movies or you watch too many gangster movies, this might throw you off. I watch both gangster movies and martial arts movies, so having the two fused together is actually really cool. The only problem I have with the action, though, is that the camera shakes a little bit here and there. Not too much, but often enough to where it does get kind of a little obnoxious. It would be better if we could just keep the camera still. But other than that, the action's fine. The movie is really long, though, really, really long. But after a while, you forget of how long it is because it is that entertaining. And of course, the movie, it is in Indonesian, and sometimes they speak Japanese because there is a Yakuza in the movie that he's trying to track down. So people are speaking Indonesian and Japanese, and it's all subtitles. But there is this one scene that's completely random where the characters want to speaking English. So you have to read a lot of subtitles throughout the movie. But then an action scene happens, and then you wind up forgetting that there's dialogue in this movie because of how much action there is. And it's not like one of those things where there's so much action that you forget the story. The action complements the story, not the other way around. Which makes it work in a fantastic way. I haven't seen action complement a movie this well in such a long time. Pacific Rim did it fine, and so did Dread and The Avengers, but this one I feel did it better, I guess, than most of them. I'm guessing more, I'm trying to say more straight up action movies, not comic book movies or science fiction action movies, just straight up action films in general. This one did the best fusion of action and story that I've seen in a long time. There we go. And the action is brutal. Like, there are some scenes where you just kind of cringe. Well, I did anyway. And there's some, like, I was like, oh, I wasn't expecting to do that. And you really feel the impact of each punch. And as you can see, my hand's kind of messed up and I almost slammed that one. Feel the impact of each punch. And like, there's some like bladed weapons that get used, and they're also used in very brutal manners. There's this one really cool scene with this guy with a machete, who's actually in the first movie. It's not the same character, but the same actor that they got. And whoever that guy is, I forget his name, he is a wonderful martial artist. He is really cool. I hope to see him in more movies. He doesn't have a Wikipedia page. He has an IMDb page, but he only has a few movies on his list, and not many. Just The Raid and Raid 2 and a couple others. I forget they are, though. But he's a great martial artist, and I would like to see him more. Now, the lead guy, I forget the actor's name, but I will say he is the closest thing to the modern day Bruce Lee that we will get. He is an awesome martial artist. I give that guy props. So, like, these guys are small. I'm pretty sure he's shorter than me, but he would just beat the hell out of me. He'd beat the hell out of anybody. I have a friend who's like 6 foot tall, but I'm pretty sure that he would just get maimed by this guy. And that's cool because like he also has this like innocent face, so it's just like when he beats these guys down, and not just beats them, he like brutally kills them. You're just like, that's awesome because you feel more connection to him because he's just an innocent character. He's a cop who got thrown into this mess of a thing. And he's obviously a younger cop, so this is all just like, eventually gets too much for him. You can kind of like sense that possibly going on in his head. The viewing experience was pretty cool too. The theater I had to go see it in is actually the preferred theater I like going to. Like, it's a farther drive away than the one I normally go to. But the reason why the theater that I saw the Raid 2 in is better than the theater I normally go to is that the theater I normally go to, it's a Carmack theater, and the theater I went to is a Regal theater. That one's the one that's farther away, the Regal one. The Carmack one, I don't know why, it might be something new that they did. Their screens are darker, and especially when it's a dark movie, like when we saw Oculus, there's a lot of scenes that are done in darkness. The screen's just not that bright, which affects the viewing experience a little bit. Not a great amount, but it does enough to the point where it kind of gets frustrating. Like when I saw Thor 2, that ruined the experience for me a little bit because Thor 2 is supposed to be a bright, colorful action film, but when I was watching it there, it kind of didn't work as well as it should have because of the fact that they darkened the screen. Maybe it's a way to save money because they do have a big D, which is like a giant screen, not an IMAX screen, but it is a bigger screen with better sound. Maybe they're trying to save money with that thing so that way they can use that more. But it is kind of underwhelming the fact that they use less light in that theater. Especially this one time when I saw This Is the End. If you saw that review, I think I mentioned it. They left the lights on like halfway through the movie, and they even started the movie late. That's just the one incident, but when the screen is dark and the lights are on, you can barely see what's going on, and that was a movie that really needed it to be bright. And this movie, if I saw it at the Carmike, it might have diminished my experience a bit more because there are a few like darker scenes where like they're in a bit more of a shadowy type of area. Not like the lighting's better than what you see here, but there's still like it's just the environment that they're in, so that's how it would work. So when you see a movie at the Regal, they brighten the screens up properly so you can see it properly. I just said properly twice there. So it is nice that Regal does do that, but it is a shame that I do have to drive out that far away. So that did improve my viewing experience much more. Plus, Carmack seems like it's doing things at 720p, where Regal is definitely showing their films at 1080p. I know it's one of those things that's a subtle difference, but you can sense it though. But other than that, that's all I have to say on that matter. Anyways, back to the Raid 2 itself. The movie is wonderful. It's fantastic. I may wind up liking it more than Godzilla, and Godzilla is my most anticipated film of the year. It has great action, great characters, great story. It has everything It's basically the first movie done way better, and I like the first movie a lot. And this is the perfect way to do a sequel. I'm happy they did it. The violence, the action was bone-breakingly awesome. Like, my bones kind of hurt, and like there's this one scene that made my cheek hurt after I saw it. And there's a hammer scene in this movie. I have to say that this hammer scene dominates the hammer scene in Oldboy. And this one guy has the baseball bat is also awesome. So if you can find a theater that's playing it near you, definitely check it out. But I'm pretty sure that the Regal doesn't have it anymore, so it might not be in theaters anymore, which is a shame because it definitely needed a bigger expansion into other theaters as opposed to like just select theaters. It's a wider release, but it needed to be more open to theaters, which I think would benefit this movie and the entire series as a whole much better. So overall, though, I give the movie a perfect score. It's a 5-star film. It did everything the first one did, but improved upon it in almost every way. Like I said, the only complaint I can have with it is the fact that the camera is a little bit shaky, but I could ignore it because the action is really well done, and it's not that excessive, but it is still there, and I never like shaky cam in any movie, really. And there's also a really cool car chase scene, a car action scene where they're fighting in a car, and I never expected them to be able to do an action scene in a car that well, but they did. So that definitely gives the movie a lot more props. So definitely check out The Raid 2 if it's playing in a cinema around you. And when it comes out to DVD and Blu-ray, definitely pick it up. It is worth it. I think everyone should check it out, especially if you're a fan of martial arts movies. But if you don't like movies that are overly violent, this movie's obviously not for you, but definitely give it, at least watch the trailer, see if it intrigues you. I loved it, and have a good day.